Hey guys, we are back updating the power rankings for the Traitors US Season 2 following Week 7, also known as Episode 9. And again, I feel like this episode kind of had some weird pacing, though considering there are only 2 episodes left before the end of the season, I guess it kind of makes sense why they went about it the way that they did, but we'll get to that more in a moment. But there are 10 players to talk about, and as always, any more time, let's get right into the video. So starting off at number 10, we have the only boot from this week, and here we have Kevin. And obviously, Kevin was someone I was very low on for most of the season, and it kind of makes sense for him to be taken out in this spot, especially with Peter's alliance being this pretty big target. Obviously, Kevin was murdered as a way of weakening that alliance. And even beyond that, I feel like most of his content was his relationship with Peter throughout the season. And considering how his edit for most of the season was kind of under the radar, but also mostly negative, I feel like it just made sense for Kevin to not get towards the end. And obviously he is now out of the game, which is why he's here at number 10. And with that, there are 9 players left again to talk about, and as usual, I'll be ranking them based on how likely I think they are to win the game based on their edit and current game position. And obviously this is kind of a weird point to be doing this ranking, considering that the last episode ended on a cliffhanger right in the middle of roundtable, where obviously it all comes down to MJ's vote or whether to banish Fedra or Peter. It's obviously annoying that they did this considering that I'm making a video like this, as obviously there's uncertainty over who the actual boot is going to be. But at number 9, I actually had the person who I think will be banished, and here we have Fedra. And I think it's pretty clear at this point that a traitor is not winning this season, or at least not the current traitors that we have, as I feel like Fedra had already gotten so much set up for a downfall at some point down the road, and I feel like with the Faithfuls in general having a much stronger edit compared to Fedra, it's really only a matter of time before both Fedra and Kate get taken out. And I feel like this episode definitely gave us some setup to Fedra being taken out. And obviously you have MJ, who is the swing vote in all this, who got a confessional about not trusting either Peter or Fedra, and that just because she's a Bravo girl doesn't mean that she's going to be loyal to Fedra to the end. So again, there is at least some setup to MJ betraying Fedra here. Though realistically, even if MJ goes the other way and votes out Peter, I still don't see how Fedra wins the game, considering that Fedra already has a target on her back, and also considering that like the traitors have kind of not been set up to win based off how they've been presented on the show. So realistically, I don't think Fedra is likely to win, and it wouldn't shock me at all if she is the one that MJ votes for on Thursday night, which is why she's here at number 9. Now moving on to number 8, we actually have the other target on the board, and here we have Peter. And even though I think Fedra will be the one voted out at this roundtable, it's still not impossible for MJ to come around to voting out Peter instead. Again, I don't think it's a 100% lock. And even if Peter does survive this round, there's no way he's getting towards the end, considering the massive target that is on his back, and considering how long he's been set up for a downfall at this point. So again, I don't think Peter is very likely to win this game either. I feel like both Peter and Fedra are doomed regardless of which one goes here, as they're probably going to be taken out soon anyway. Now admittedly, I think Peter probably has a bit more wiggle room if he survives this round, as obviously if Fedra goes, then she'll have to admit that she's a traitor, and they'll give Peter a little more deniability. As obviously, if Peter were to go and he admits he's a faithful, then Fedra's automatically a goner next round. I do think Peter has a slightly better outlook if he survives this round, but realistically, I don't think he's winning either, which is why he's here number 8. Now moving on to number 7, we have the other traitor on the board, and here we have Kate. And obviously Kate accepted the offer because, well, she had to. And again, I don't think Kate is winning this game either, as even though she is kind of calling out Fedra for not having all the information, the fact that she almost went through with murdering Trelle, who had a shield, and just not having all the information, I still think Kate is not long for this game either, where literally the show is already dunking on her, considering how suspicious she looked during the breakfast. And in general, I mean, it's Kate. I mean, it's not like she's super aware about what's happening in the game either. So again, I don't think Kate's winning. I don't think a traitor is winning unless one of these top 6 end up becoming a traitor after Fedra gets taken out. But obviously that leaves Kate here at number 7. Now moving on to number 6, and we have someone who I have been kind of low on for a lot of the season, and I still have them relatively low, and here we have MJ. And obviously MJ got a lot of focus here because she's the swing vote here, where obviously the episode ended before we got to see her vote, and she did get set up earlier about her not trusting Peter or Fedra, and that she's kind of on the fence about voting out Fedra. Now again, I did say in my piece earlier, I think she does vote out Fedra here, But even then, I don't think it's really enough to prop her up winner wise to get towards the end. And obviously, if she votes out Peter, then it kind of undercuts her there as well, where she talked about being open to cutting Phaedra if she were a traitor. So again, I don't think she's primed to win either way. Though I will admit that if she does vote out Phaedra, it will give her a little bit of credibility. Though obviously, I don't think she's super likely to win either, which is why she's here number 6. Now moving on to number 5, we have another faithful here on the board, and here we have Shereé. And I think Shereé is probably a bit more likely to get towards the very end compared to the next person we'll be talking about, as she did get that confessional this episode about how she's glad that she's made it this far. And again, she has been getting like minor confessionals here and there that set her up as a consistent presence throughout the season. And obviously she is one of these people that calls out Peter during the roundtable. So I feel like she is a bit more likely to get towards the very end. Though at the same time, the fact that she is like on this side of taking up Peter, who is obviously a faithful, isn't the greatest look, and I feel like it could show that she doesn't have the best reads in the world. But again, I do feel like she's a bit more likely to get towards the end, which is why she's here at number 5. Now moving on to number 4, and like I said, I think this person's a bit more likely to get banished or murdered towards the end, but I feel like this person has been a bigger character on the show, and here we have Sandra. And this was not the best look for Sandra, where obviously she's now gunning so hard for Peter, who obviously is not a traitor and is kind of a battery on Sandra's end. And obviously, while that's the reality of the situation, I do feel like she is probably a bigger character compared to Shereé. I feel like that's a big reason why I have her above Shereé, as I feel like there is a bit more of a chance that she could get some credibility and turn around towards the end. But at the same time, I do think she's a bit more likely to get murdered than Shereé. And I think compared to the top 3, I feel like the top 3 are a bit more likely to actually win by the end, which is why I have her here at number 4. Now moving on to number 3. And again, this person has been creeping up on me a little bit during the season. And here we have John. And obviously, John has been a very interesting presence during the season. Again, I feel like he is someone who has a lot of credibility in the game as being like the faithful, the faithfuls. And obviously, he does have a decent amount of content in this episode with him trying to defend Peter and him like working with Peter and Trelle to try to get Sandra and CT on board. And obviously, while it kind of worked with CT being on board to take out Phaedra, obviously they were not able to get Sandra on board. So obviously, it's not great that it's coming down to MJ's vote here. But again, I feel like John has at least had a bit more setup to be the faithful of the faithfuls. And admittedly, while that could lead to him being murdered as a way of like demoralizing the faithfuls, I think that setup in him obviously being on the right side of things was enough to leave him here at number 3. Now moving on to number 2, and it's obviously the same top 2 as last week. And admittedly, the order has not changed either. But number 2, we do have Trelle. And really the main reason that I have Trelle number 2 is obviously she came very close to having a hit taken on her, but obviously she had a shield, so it wouldn't have gone through anyway. And obviously this week she's kind of in a worse spot now, where obviously we saw Phaedra like trying to like set her up to not win the shield based on the challenge, but even then CD called her out for it. And obviously Trelle's made a big meal of this during the roundtable. And obviously even beyond that, we saw her being involved with like the work to take out Peter. And obviously like it's kind of a precarious spot, as Peter could very well be taken out either this round or in the coming rounds soon. Which, admittedly, I don't think is as good of a spot for Trelle to be in, as I feel like Trelle's position would be more negatively impacted by Peter going out, as I feel like CT's has been more of an independent force within the game. So I feel like that's a big factor for me. Obviously, CT has a shield as well, which is obviously why I think Trelle is in a bit more danger to be murdered in the next couple of rounds. But obviously, I still think Trelle is a front runner to win. I feel like her along with CT are kind of the main characters of the season at this point. And I think that's a big reason why I have Trelle here at number 2. And now, at number 1, the person I believe is the most likely to win the Traitors US Season 2 at this point is still CT. And again, I think it's largely due to game position that I'm going with CT here, as obviously he has safety for this round with him having the shield. And even beyond that, I do think CT's position is a bit stronger than Trelle's, where he's not as reliant on Trelle to stay in the game, to have safety. Now, obviously, he's kind of presented as a swing vote, where initially he was suspicious of Peter, but then obviously Peter campaigns to him and he's able to come around to voting with Trelle here. He's obviously one of the people that harps a lot on the mission, how Fedra and Sandra were trying to target Trelle. And I feel like based off what we've been seeing on the show, it's pretty clear that CT is the more game-focused person compared to Trelle. Where even though Trelle is aligned with Peter and she's the one trying to work with Peter to try to get him off the block, I feel like CT has been shown to be a bit more intentional with how he positions himself, and obviously he's the one to think through scenarios more. I think the show wants us to see CT as the better detective compared to Trelle, which is a big reason why I had to give him the edge this week, and obviously he is here at number 1. And there we go, that'll do it for this week's video. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe, really helps it with the channel. Now I'll be back again next week to update the power rankings again, so you can look forward to that. I'm covering other shows at this point, including Australian Survivor Titans vs. Rebels, Survivor 46. Very soon we'll be getting Big Brother Canada 12, as well as The Amazing Race 36. So you can expect content on those shows. I'm on Patreon now, so if you want to consider supporting the channel, you can do so by clicking the link in the description, and you can also join the Discord server by also clicking the link in the description. There's a lot of stuff coming your way, but for now, that is the video. See ya.